Top 10 times entitled musicians ruined their own lives. 10. R. Kelly, the fall of an R&B king. Once hailed as the king of R&B, R. Kelly's silky voice and chart-topping ballads made him a global icon. But behind the fame was a man living a double life, one riddled with manipulation, abuse, and unchecked power. In the early 2000s, whispers turned into full-blown allegations as evidence of Kelly's misconduct with minors surfaced. For years, he escaped accountability, his money, fame, and loyal fan base shielding him from the law. But as the #MeToo era dawned, survivors' voices grew louder. When the documentary Surviving R. Kelly dropped in 2019, it was a cultural earthquake. His legacy crumbled in real time. He was convicted in 2021 on federal racketeering and sex trafficking charges. Kelly wasn't just canceled, he was erased. An empire built on ego and exploitation fell apart, brick by brick in front of the world. 9. Kanye West, from genius to canceled. Kanye West's story is a Shakespearean tragedy of ambition, brilliance, and self-destruction. He changed hip-hop forever, producing classics like The College Dropout and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. But as his fame soared, so did his ego. Interrupting Taylor Swift at the VMAs was just the beginning. From bizarre tweets to MAGA hats to presidential runs, Kanye's antics grew more erratic, and many fans still gave him the benefit of the doubt. That all changed in 2022, when he spiraled into a storm of anti-Semitic rants, conspiracy theories, and dangerous rhetoric. Brands dropped him overnight. Adidas cut ties, costing him billions. What's tragic? His undeniable genius is now forever tainted by the hate he broadcasted. Kanye didn't just burn bridges, he torched his own legacy. 8. Axl Rose, the rock star who burned every bridge. In the late 80s, Guns N' Roses were gods of the rock world, and Axl Rose was their unpredictable, magnetic frontman. But success made Axl harder to work with. He showed up late, or not at all, to concerts. He picked fights with bandmates, fans, and journalists. He gained a reputation for being impossible. By the early 90s, the band was imploding. Members like Slash walked away. Axl held on to the name Guns N' Roses, but lost everything that made it special. He spent over a decade in creative exile, obsessing over Chinese democracy, an album that became more of a meme than a masterpiece. Entitlement and paranoia left him a recluse while his peers thrived. He eventually returned, older, wiser, quieter, but the damage had been done. 7. Chris Brown, talent destroyed by violence. Chris Brown had it all. Charm, dance moves, a golden voice. He was the heir apparent to Michael Jackson. But in 2009, the world was stunned when photos of a bruised Rihanna surfaced. Brown's brutal assault on his then-girlfriend sent shockwaves through the music world. Though he apologized publicly, his subsequent behavior, violent outbursts, social media meltdowns, legal troubles, only worsened his reputation. Radio stations pulled his music. Fans turned away. Opportunities dried up. He'd resurface with hits, but the shadow of that night, and the chaos that followed, never left. Chris Brown's story is a chilling example of how one violent moment, compounded by years of arrogance, can derail a brilliant career. 6. Courtney Love fame, drugs, and chaos. Courtney Love was more than just Kurt Cobain's widow. She was a punk rock icon in her own right. But her talent was constantly eclipsed by her erratic behavior. Arrests, Twitter feuds, drug use, custody battles, Courtney was chaos personified. She burned bridges with fellow musicians, studios, and even her own daughter. While her band Hole made waves in the 90s, her personal scandals drowned out the music. Her public persona, once rebellious and raw, became a caricature. And while she's made attempts at comebacks, her reputation as rock's most infamous train wreck stuck. Courtney didn't just sabotage her career, she became the warning label on the punk dream. 5. Tekashi 6ix9ine, from Billboard to prison cell. Daniel Hernandez, better known as Tekashi 6ix9ine, was a viral masterclass in shock, color, and chaos. With his rainbow hair, face tattoos, and aggressive yelling over distorted beats, he took the internet by storm. And it wasn't just the music. Tekashi thrived on controversy, gang affiliations, beefs with other rappers, Instagram live meltdowns, and wild accusations. He aligned himself with the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, not just for street cred, but for protection and clout. They helped shoot his music videos. He shouted them out in songs. In return, he was allegedly funding their operations. This wasn't just music marketing. It was real criminal enterprise. The FBI swooped in, arresting Tekashi and members of his crew on racketeering and weapons charges. Facing 47 years to life, Tekashi did what many expected. He flipped. He testified against his own gang in court, earning the infamous snitch label. While his sentence was reduced dramatically, his reputation was ruined. The street culture he once profited from now rejected him. He attempted a comeback post-prison, even bragging about snitching. But the magic was gone. Concerts were canceled. His sophomore album flopped. Collaborators distanced themselves. In the end, the man who built an empire on internet chaos got swallowed by it. He wasn't taken down by haters. He destroyed himself. 4. Amy Winehouse, a voice silenced by self-destruction. Few voices in modern music felt as hauntingly real as Amy Winehouse. Her 2006 album Back to Black was a soulful masterpiece, earning her 6 Grammy Awards and international acclaim. She was raw, powerful, and authentic, and deeply broken. Amy struggled with addiction, bulimia, and toxic relationships, especially with her ex-husband Blake Fielder Civil. Together, they spiraled in a storm of codependence, drugs, and arrests. The press, instead of offering sympathy, treated her like entertainment. Paparazzi followed her every breakdown. Late-night hosts mocked her slurred speech. Tabloids plastered photos of her bloody ballet flats and smeared eyeliner across their covers. But behind the headlines was a woman crying for help. Despite attempts at rehab and temporary moments of sobriety, Amy couldn't escape the darkness. Her father pushed her into performances she wasn't ready for. Her record label turned a blind eye to her worsening condition. And when she did try to get clean, it was too late. On July 23, 2011, Amy Winehouse was found dead in her London home from alcohol poisoning. She was only 27, joining the tragic 27 Club alongside Hendrix, Joplin, and Cobain. Amy didn't lose her life because she lacked talent. She lost it because the world loved her music more than it cared about her health, a brutal reminder of what entitlement, enablers, and exploitation can do to a troubled star. 3. Britney Spears, the cost of pop stardom. Britney Spears wasn't just a pop star. She was the pop industry in the late 1990s and early 2000s. From schoolgirl skirts in More Baby One More Time to the diamond bodysuit of Toxic, she defined a generation. But the world didn't let Britney grow up. She was infantilized, sexualized, criticized, and stalked, all before she turned 25. The media tore her down for gaining weight, shaving her head, lashing out at paparazzi. The same industry that once crowned her queen now called her crazy. But what fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, her life was no longer hers. After a public breakdown in 2007, Britney was placed in a court-mandated conservatorship, controlled by her father, Jamie Spears. For 13 years, she was stripped of basic freedoms, unable to control her money, her schedule, or even her reproductive rights. She kept working, releasing albums, doing Vegas shows, smiling for cameras, all while legally deemed unfit to make her own decisions. The world applauded her comeback while ignoring the prison she was living in. It took until 2021, after explosive court testimony and the #Free Britney movement, for the conservatorship to finally end. Britney's story isn't just about a star's fall. It's about how the industry can chew you up and make you believe it's your own fault. Her entitlement wasn't the problem. It was the entitlement of everyone who claimed to own her. 2. Morrissey, from icon to pariah. There was a time when Morrissey was the voice of the outcast. With the Smiths, he captured teenage angst like no one else. He was melancholic, poetic, mysterious. A hero to the misfits. The man once beloved for standing outside the mainstream began embracing increasingly controversial and often inflammatory views. He called Chinese people a subspecies, defended right-wing politicians, and dismissed racism accusations as boring. Fans were stunned. Venues canceled shows. Labels stopped supporting his music. Once loyal followers turned their backs, but Morrissey doubled down. He wore far-right party badges during concerts. He lashed out at critics, called #MeToo a witch hunt, and burned every bridge of goodwill he had left. Morrissey wasn't canceled by some woke mob. He was canceled by his own bitterness and ego. He forgot what made him beloved in the first place: empathy, vulnerability, truth. In the end, he became the very thing he once sang against, an out-of-touch voice yelling into a void of his own making. 1. Sinead O'Connor, the Pope photo that changed everything. In 1992, Sinead O'Connor was one of the biggest stars in the world. Her cover of Nothing Compares to You was a global hit. Her shaved head and haunting voice made her unforgettable. During a live performance, she held up a photo of Pope John Paul II and tore it in half. "Fight the real enemy," she said, protesting the Catholic Church's history of abuse and cover-ups. The audience sat in stunned silence. NBC received thousands of complaints. Joe Pesci threatened her on air the following week. Frank Sinatra wanted to kick her ass. Radio stations blacklisted her. Her career flatlined overnight. Years later, the world learned she had been right. The church had covered up horrific abuse. But the damage was done. Sinead became a cautionary tale of what happens when a woman speaks uncomfortable truths too early. She never apologized. She never compromised. And that cost her everything in the industry. In 2023, she passed away. And only then did the world begin to reevaluate her courage. She didn't ruin her life through ego. The industry did for daring to speak out before it was acceptable.